On June 6, 1944, one of the most complex and daring military operations in all of history was launched. It was codenamed Operation Overlord, but you probably know it by its more famous name, D-Day. This is the story of how that single incredible day changed the course of the entire world.
So just think about this for a second. How do you actually invade an entire continent? That was the massive problem the Allies were facing. I mean, you have to move a whole army across a dangerous sea to attack a coastline that is bristling with defenses. The stakes couldn't have been higher. The fate of the war was literally riding on this.
Now, the key to pulling this off wasn't just about having more soldiers or more ships. No, the real genius was in the plan. It was all about secrecy and, believe it or not, deception. The Allies had to trick the entire German army, and to do that, they came up with one of the most brilliant bluffs in military history. At the heart of this deception was a plan called Operation Fortitude. Get this, the Allies built an entire fake army. They positioned it to look like it was going to attack Calais, which makes sense, right? It's the narrowest part of the English Channel, and the Germans completely fell for it. They kept their best forces waiting there for an invasion that was never going to happen, while the real army was secretly getting ready to hit the beaches of Normandy. So how do you make a fake army look real? Well, with some incredible creativity. They had inflatable rubber tanks that looked totally convincing from the air. They built wooden airplanes. They even created tons of fake radio chatter for German intelligence to listen in on. This ghost army was so convincing it kept thousands of German troops in the wrong place at the wrong time. Absolutely genius. All right, so before a single boot hit the sand, before the first ships even reached the shore, the invasion actually began in the dead of night. The very first wave of the attack didn't come from the sea. It came from the sky. We're talking about paratroopers. These are soldiers who are specially trained to jump out of airplanes right into the middle of combat, often deep behind enemy lines. Their mission on D-Day was incredibly dangerous. They had to land in total darkness, somehow find each other, and capture crucial roads and bridges. Why? To stop the Germans from sending reinforcements to the beaches. As you can imagine, the drop was pure chaos. Planes were scattered by heavy anti-aircraft fire, and soldiers were dropped miles from where they were supposed to be. But they were tough. They formed small, scrappy units, attacked from the shadows, and created all sorts of confusion for the enemy. Their bravery was absolutely essential. Without them, the main invasion force would have been in even more trouble. So, with the paratroopers already fighting hard inland, the main event was set to kick off at dawn. The largest invasion fleet ever put together in human history was making its way across the English Channel, aimed straight at the coast of Normandy. The scale of this is almost impossible to wrap your head around. Over 5,000 ships. Think about that. From gigantic battleships to tiny landing craft, all moving as one. An armada of this size had never ever been assembled before. It was like a floating city of steel heading for France. The plan was to attack 5 specific beaches along a 50-mile stretch of coast. The Americans were assigned to Utah and Omaha beaches, the British took Gold and Sword, and the Canadians were tasked with capturing Juneau. For the whole invasion to work, every single one of these landings had to succeed. But waiting for them was something called the Atlantic Wall. This wasn't just a wall, it was a massive system of defenses the Germans had spent years perfecting. We're talking thick concrete bunkers, hidden machine gun nests, millions of landmines, and huge, sharp steel obstacles hidden just under the water, all designed to tear the invasion apart before it could even start. So the very first and most terrifying job for every soldier was to get out of the landing craft, run across a wide open beach with bullets flying everywhere, and somehow find a way to break through this wall of steel and concrete. An almost impossible task. The fighting was ferocious on all the beaches, but it was absolute hell on Omaha Beach. The high cliffs there gave the German defenders a perfect view of the entire beach, leaving the American troops completely exposed. As one report put it, they had very little cover. It was a death trap, and it quickly became the bloodiest of all the landings. And the human cost of that day was just staggering. It's estimated that over 4,000 Allied soldiers were killed on June 6 alone, with thousands and thousands more wounded. It's a number that really puts the incredible sacrifice of that day into perspective. But this invasion wasn't just about courage and numbers. It was also about brains. The Allies had been working on incredible new technologies and secret weapons, designed specifically to crack the toughest problems D-Day would present. They came up with some truly amazing ideas, like the DD tanks.
These were tanks that could actually float in the water and swim to shore to provide covering fire. Or the Mulberry Harbors. These were massive artificial ports that they built in Britain and towed across the channel to create instant harbors for unloading supplies. And maybe the wildest invention of all was Paludo, a flexible pipeline they laid on the seabed to pump fuel all the way from England to France. These innovations were absolute game changers.
Okay, so getting a foothold on those beaches was a huge victory, but it was really just the beginning. The success of D-Day opened the door for the rest of the war in Europe, but the road ahead was still going to be long and incredibly difficult. Once the soldiers moved inland, they ran into a whole new kind of problem, the French countryside itself. It's known as the bocage, a landscape filled with these super thick, ancient hedgerows that basically turn every field into a natural fortress. It was perfect for defenders and made the Allied advance incredibly slow and dangerous. But they just kept pushing. After the landings in June, it took 2 more months of hard fighting before Allied troops triumphantly liberated Paris in August. And then, less than a year after D-Day, in May of 1945, the war in Europe was finally over. And that's the ultimate legacy of D-Day. Its success opened up a second front in Western Europe. Suddenly, Germany was trapped, fighting massive armies on both sides, in the east against the Soviets and now in the west. It was a two-front war they simply could not win. The invasion of Normandy had sealed their fate. When you look back, the story of D-Day is just an incredible mix of brilliant planning, unbelievable courage, and heartbreaking sacrifice. And it really leaves us with a powerful question to think about. What does this single day in history teach us about what it truly costs to secure freedom?